There I was, sitting at my kitchen table at 2 in the morning, half drunk on cheap whiskey and completely sober about my life's trajectory. The security camera I'd been fixing lay in pieces before me, circuit boards, tiny screws, and the kind of sophisticated electronics that made my living but couldn't fix my marriage. That's when I heard Andrea's voice drifting from the bedroom, honey sweet and poison laced. He's completely clueless, Blake. I swear. Sometimes I think he'd miss a freight train if it ran through our living room. Her laugh was the kind that used to make my chest tight with love. Now it just made me want to throw something expensive against the wall. Meet me at the Sunset Motel on Route 9, Room 12. And Blake, bring that good bourbon you mentioned. There it is, I thought, setting down my screwdriver with the careful precision of a man who'd just heard his world crack in half. The punchline of my marriage. My name is Jack Morrison, and I've spent the last 15 years installing security systems for paranoid rich people and cheating spouses. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd become both. At 42, I was supposedly in my prime, still had most of my hair, could bench press my weight, and ran Morrison Security Solutions with enough success to keep us comfortable in our little corner of Millbrook, New York. But comfortable, as I was learning, wasn't enough for Andrea. Millbrook used to be something. Back when the textile mill was running 3 shifts and the main street had actual businesses instead of empty storefronts and a Dollar General. Now it was the kind of place people moved away from, not to. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, which made keeping secrets both essential and impossible. I'd met Andrea 12 years ago when she was a paralegal with big dreams and I was still nursing bruised knuckles from my brief unsuccessful boxing career. She was smart, ambitious, and beautiful in that sharp-edged way that made men stupid. I was stupid enough to think I could be enough for her. The whiskey burned as I finished the glass and considered my options. I could confront her directly, march into that bedroom and demand the truth. I could pretend I'd never heard anything and let my marriage die the slow death of willful ignorance. Or I could do what I did best, gather intelligence first, then act. I picked up the security camera and got back to work. If there's one thing 15 years of installing surveillance equipment had taught me, it's that people reveal their true selves when they think nobody's watching. By morning, I had 3 cameras operational, one in the hallway, one covering the driveway, and one with a clear view of our bedroom window. All connected to my phone, all recording to a cloud server Andrea didn't know existed. If my wife wanted to play games, she'd picked the wrong opponent. Andrea came down at 7:30, looking like she'd slept peacefully instead of planning an affair. She was dressed in her power suit, the navy blue one that cost more than my monthly truck payment, and her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun that said, "Don't mess with me," to opposing counsel. "Morning, honey," she said, not looking up from her phone as she grabbed her travel mug. "I might be late tonight. Big case prep?" "Sure," I said, sipping coffee that tasted like ashes. "Which case?" "The Henderson merger. Very complicated." She glanced up, and for just a second I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? Or maybe just annoyance that I was asking questions. "You wouldn't understand the details." Right, because I was just the blue-collar husband who worked with his hands. Never mind that I'd built a business from nothing or that half the lawyers in town used my services to catch their own cheating spouses. I was just too simple to understand complicated things like adultery. "Have a good day, sweetheart," I said, and I meant it, because it was going to be her last good day for a while. After she left, I called my oldest friend, Ray Kowalski. Ray owned Kowalski's boxing gym on the rough side of town, the kind of place where the heavy bags were held together with duct tape and the clientele paid in cash. We'd known each other since high school, back when we both thought we were tough enough to make it in the ring. "Jack, what's eating you?" Ray's voice was gravel and cigarettes, even though he'd quit smoking 5 years ago. "Need to talk. In person." "Come on down. I'll put coffee on." Ray's gym smelled like sweat, leather, and broken dreams. It was perfect. I found him in his office, a cramped space behind the main floor that was barely big enough for a desk and 2 chairs. Ray was built like a barrel with arms, 5'8" and solid muscle, with graying hair and scars that told stories he never talked about. "So," he said, pouring coffee that could strip paint, "what's the verdict?" Andrea's cheating. Ray nodded like I'd told him it was Tuesday. With who? Blake Hutchinson, guy from her law firm. The pretty boy with the BMW? That's him. Ray leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously. What do you want to do about it? That was Ray. No judgment, no false sympathy. Just straight to the practical question. It's why we'd stayed friends when everyone else from the old neighborhood had either moved away or died. I want to hit back, I said, but smart, not hard. Smart's better, Ray agreed. Hard gets you arrested. Smart gets you even. The Sunset Motel was exactly what you'd expect from a place that rented rooms by the hour. Faded pink stucco, neon sign with half the letters burned out, and the kind of clientele that paid in cash and didn't ask for receipts. I'd installed security systems in classier crack houses. I was parked across the street in my work van, unmarked white Ford with tinted windows and enough surveillance equipment to make the NSA jealous. At 9:47 p.m., Andrea's silver Lexus pulled into the parking lot. She'd changed out of her power suit into jeans and a sweater, trying to look casual. She failed. Blake's BMW arrived 3 minutes later. Blake Hutchinson was everything I wasn't. 6'2", perfectly styled hair, clothes that cost more than most people's rent. He was the kind of guy who'd never thrown a real punch in his life, but thought his law degree made him tough. They met at the door of room 12 like they'd done this before. Blake had a bottle in a brown bag. The good bourbon, no doubt. They disappeared inside, and I settled in to wait. 2 hours later, they emerged looking satisfied and stupid. Andrea kissed him goodbye. Not a peck, but the kind of kiss that said, "This means something." Then she drove off, probably planning to come home and tell me about her exhausting case prep. Blake was fumbling with his keys when I made my move. I'd parked next to his BMW while they were busy, and now I had about 30 seconds before he noticed me. "Beautiful night," I said, stepping out of the shadows. Blake jumped like he'd been electrocuted. "Jesus, you scared me." "Sorry about that." I wasn't sorry. "Jack Morrison, I think you know my wife." The color drained from Blake's face. In the motel's parking lot lighting, he looked like a ghost wearing an expensive suit. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice cracked like a teenager's. "Sure you do. Andrea Morrison. Blonde, about 5'6", married to a guy who installs security cameras for a living." I smiled, and Blake took a step back. "Funny thing about security cameras. They're everywhere these days. You never know who might be watching." "Are you threatening me?" "Me?" "No, I'm just making conversation." I pulled out my keys and casually dragged them along the side of his BMW, spelling out liar in foot-high letters. Whoops. Clumsy me. Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You can't. That's vandalism." "Prove it," I said, walking back to my van. "Oh, and Blake, smile for the cameras." I drove home feeling better than I had in months. Andrea was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. I brushed my teeth, got into my pajamas, and climbed in beside her like nothing had happened. "How was case prep?" I asked. "Exhausting," she murmured. "Very complicated." "I bet." The next morning, Blake showed up at my door. He'd obviously been up all night. His perfect hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and his eyes had the wild look of a man who'd discovered he wasn't as smart as he thought. "We need to talk," he said. "Do we?" I was drinking coffee on my front porch, enjoying the morning sun and the sight of Blake's keyed BMW in my driveway. "About what?" "You know damn well about what." "That stunt you pulled last night." "What stunt?" "I was home all evening. Ask my wife." Blake's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. "I want you to stay away from me." "This is my house, Blake. You came to me." "You know what I mean." I set down my coffee cup and looked at him, really looked at him. Under the expensive clothes and the law degree, Blake was just another scared little boy who'd never been punched in the mouth. "Here's the thing, Blake," I said quietly. "I've been installing security systems for 15 years. I know where all the cameras are in this town. I know who's watching what and when and why. So, if I were you, which thank God I'm not, I'd be very careful about what I did and where I did it." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you. There's a difference." Blake opened his mouth to say something else, but Andrea's voice cut him off. "Blake, what are you doing here?" She was standing in the doorway, still in her robe, looking between us like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Her face was pale, and I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. Just having a neighborly chat, I said. Blake was telling me about his car troubles. Blake's face went through several interesting color changes. I should go. Probably, I agreed. Drive carefully, Blake. You never know who might be watching. After he left, Andrea sat down next to me on the porch swing. She was trying to look casual, but I could feel the tension radiating off her like heat from a furnace. What was that about? She asked. Like I said, car troubles. Someone keyed his BMW. That's terrible. Who would do something like that? I shrugged. Could be anyone. Blake's not exactly popular around town. What do you mean? Come on, Andrea. Rich boy from the city, driving a car that costs more than most people make in a year, working at the fancy law firm while everyone else is struggling. People notice that kind of thing. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at Blake's retreating BMW. Jack, is there something you want to tell me? Yeah, I thought. I want to tell you that I know you're a lying, cheating whore, and I'm going to make you pay for it in ways you can't even imagine. But instead, I smiled and said, just that I love you, sweetheart, and I'd hate for anything to come between us. Emma came home from college that weekend, and I remembered why divorce was going to be complicated. My daughter was 19, smart as a whip, and had inherited her mother's ability to see through bullshit. Unfortunately, she'd also inherited her mother's tendency to jump to conclusions. Dad, Mom says you've been acting weird lately, she said over dinner at Rosario's, the only decent restaurant left in Millbrook. Weird how? I asked, cutting into my steak. Paranoid, suspicious. She thinks you might be having some kind of midlife crisis. I looked across the table at Andrea, who was picking at her salad and avoiding my eyes. What do you think, honey? Am I having a midlife crisis? I think you've been under a lot of stress, Andrea said carefully. The business, the economy, everything that's been happening in town. Right, the stress. I took a sip of wine. You know what's stressful, Emma? When you spend 15 years building a life with someone and then you start to wonder if they ever really wanted that life at all. Emma frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, sweetheart. Just rambling. But Andrea knew what I meant. I could see it in the way her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. After dinner, I drove Emma back to her dorm at SUNY Albany. The 2-hour round trip gave me time to think about what came next. I'd fired the first shot, but this was just the beginning. If I was going to win this war, I needed allies. My first stop was Melanie Garrett, Andrea's best friend since law school. Melanie was one of those suburban soccer moms who looked innocent, but had a PhD in passive aggression. She lived in a McMansion on the good side of town, with her investment banker husband and their 2 perfect children. Jack, what a surprise, she said when she opened the door. Andrea's not here. Actually, I wanted to talk to you. Melanie's smile flickered like a bad fluorescent bulb. Oh, well, come in, I suppose. Her living room looked like a furniture showroom. Everything perfectly arranged, nothing out of place. Melanie gestured to the couch, but I remained standing. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Of course. How long have you known about Blake? The color drained from Melanie's face. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You're Andrea's best friend. You know everything about her life, including who she's sleeping with. Melanie sat down heavily in her designer chair. Jack, I think you should talk to Andrea about this. I'm talking to you. How long? I can't. This isn't my business. It became your business the minute you decided to keep quiet about it. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Melanie. I'm going to find out the truth one way or another. The question is whether you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Melanie was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. Finally, she looked up at me with something that might have been pity. 3 months, she said quietly. It started 3 months ago. And you didn't think I deserved to know? It's not that simple, Jack. Andrea was confused, unhappy. She said things weren't good between you two. So that made it okay? No, of course not. But I hoped, it would burn itself out. These things usually do. I stood up. Thanks for your honesty, Melanie. I appreciate it. Jack, wait. What are you going to do? I paused at the door. I'm going to do what I should have done 3 months ago. I'm going to protect myself. My next stop was the office of Morrison Security Solutions. It wasn't much, a storefront on Main Street with a desk, a computer, and enough surveillance equipment to stock a small army. But it was mine, built from nothing with my own hands and my own sweat. I spent the next 2 hours going through my client files. 15 years in the security business had given me a lot of contacts and even more information. I knew which city council members were taking bribes, which local businessmen were cooking their books, and which prominent citizens had secrets they'd pay to keep hidden. I also knew that Blake Hutchinson's law firm, Hutchinson, Wade and Associates, had been involved in some questionable real estate deals over the past year. Nothing illegal necessarily, but the kind of ethical gray area that could cause problems for a lawyer trying to make partner. By Monday morning, I had a plan. It wasn't pretty and it wasn't nice, but it was thorough. Andrea wanted to play games? Fine, but she was about to learn that she'd picked the wrong opponent. The first phase was simple: information warfare. I started by calling in a few favors with my contacts at the local newspaper. The Millbrook Gazette wasn't exactly the Washington Post, but it reached everyone who mattered in town. Hey Tom, it's Jack Morrison. I've got a story tip for you. Tom Bradley had been the Gazette's editor for 20 years, and we'd known each other since high school. He was also one of my clients. I'd installed a security system at his house after his wife started getting threatening calls from some nut job. What kind of tip? The kind that involves lawyers, questionable ethics, and public interest. I'm listening. I spent the next 20 minutes walking Tom through what I'd discovered about Blake's firm. By the time I hung up, I could practically hear him salivating. Phase 2 was more personal. I called my old friend Mike Sullivan, who worked dispatch at the sheriff's department. Mike, I need a favor. What kind of favor? The kind that involves keeping an eye on someone for me. Jack, you know I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. Just keep your ears open. If certain people start showing up in certain places, I'd like to know about it. Mike was quiet for a moment. This about Andrea? Word travels fast. Small town, Jack. People talk. Yeah, well, they're about to have a lot more to talk about. The story hit the Gazette's website on Wednesday morning, and the print edition on Thursday. Local law firm under scrutiny for real estate dealings wasn't exactly a Pulitzer Prize winner, but it got people's attention. By noon, my phone was ringing off the hook. Jack, what the hell did you do? Andrea's voice was shaking with rage. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me. That story about Blake's firm, you're behind it, aren't you? Why would you think that? Because you're the only one who would have access to that kind of information. Andrea, there are a lot of people in this town who pay attention to what the lawyers are up to. Maybe you should ask yourself why someone would want to hurt Blake's reputation. This is about the other night, isn't it? About Blake coming to the house. I told you that was about his car. Bullshit, Jack, I know you know. I was quiet for a long moment, letting the silence stretch between us. Finally, I said, Know what, Andrea? You know what. Say it. I can't. Then we don't have anything to talk about. I hung up and immediately called Ray. It's starting, I told him. About time. You need backup? Not yet, but soon. That evening, Andrea didn't come home until after 10. When she finally walked through the door, she looked like she'd aged 5 years in one day. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup was smeared, and her hands were shaking. We need to talk, she said. Do we? Jack, please. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and tried to remember when I'd stopped loving her. Was it 3 months ago when she started cheating? Or was it years before that when she started looking at me like I was something she'd stepped in? Okay, I said, let's talk. We sat in the living room on opposite ends of the couch that we'd picked out together when we were still pretending to be happy. Andrea twisted her wedding ring around her finger, a nervous habit I'd noticed years ago but never thought much about. I made a mistake, she said quietly. What kind of mistake? You know what kind. Say it, Andrea. If you want to talk, then talk. She took a shaky breath. I've been seeing someone. Blake. Yes. For how long? 3 months. Why? That was the question I'd been dreading because I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Andrea was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. Because I was lonely, she said finally. Because we've been growing apart for years, and I didn't know how to fix it. So you decided to fuck someone else instead. She flinched like I'd slapped her. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. Bullshit. You made a choice, Andrea. Every time you met him, every time you lied to me, every time you came home and pretended everything was fine, those were all choices. You're right, I'm sorry. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught. Both. At least she was honest about that much. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet street. Mrs. Porter was walking her dog, the same route she'd taken every night for the past 10 years. Normal people living normal lives, not dealing with the wreckage of a marriage built on lies. What happens now? Andrea asked. I turned back to face her. That depends. On what? On whether you're willing to do what it takes to fix this. I'll do anything, Jack, I swear. Anything? Yes. Then you're going to help me destroy Blake Hutchinson. The look on Andrea's face was worth the price of admission. What? You heard me. Blake thinks he can fuck another man's wife without consequences. He's wrong. Jack, I can't. You can and you will. Unless you'd prefer I handle this my way. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled and Andrea shrank back into the couch. It means Blake's about to learn what happens when you mess with someone who has nothing left to lose. Andrea didn't sleep that night. I could feel her lying there next to me, staring at the ceiling and probably wondering how her life had gotten so complicated. I, on the other hand, slept like a baby. There's something liberating about finally admitting that your marriage is over and deciding to do something about it. The next morning, I put phase 3 of my plan into action. I called Emma. Dad? What's wrong? You never call this early. I need to tell you something, sweetheart, and I need you to hear it from me first. Oh, God. Are you sick? Is Mom sick? No, nothing like that. Your mother and I are having some problems. Emma was quiet for a moment. What kind of problems? The kind that might end in divorce. Jesus, Dad. What happened? I could have told her the truth, that her mother was a cheating whore who'd been lying to both of us for months. But Emma was my daughter, and she didn't deserve to have her world destroyed just because mine was. We've been growing apart for a while, I said. Sometimes that happens, even when people love each other. Is there someone else? Smart girl. Yes. Mom or you? Your mother. Emma was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and hurt. How long? A few months. Do I know him? No. Another lie, but a necessary one. Emma had met Blake at a few law firm functions, and she'd probably figure it out eventually. But not today. I'm coming home, she said. Emma, you don't need to. Yes, I do. This is my family, too. After I hung up, I called Ray. Emma knows, I told him. How'd she take it? About as well as you'd expect. She's driving home today. What about Andrea? What about her? You really think she's going to help you go after Blake? She doesn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Jack. Not anymore. That afternoon, I got a call from Mike Sullivan. Your boy Blake just filed a police report, he said. About what? Harassment. Says you've been following him, threatening him, vandalizing his car. Interesting. What did you tell him? I told him we'd look into it. Then I filed his report in the circular file. Thanks, Mike. Don't thank me yet. Blake's connected, Jack. His daddy's got money and influence. This could get complicated. It already is complicated. Just watch your back, okay? Always do. Emma arrived at 6, looking like she'd been crying for the past 4 hours. She hugged me tight, and for a moment, I felt like maybe I was doing the right thing. Where's Mom? She asked. Working late, as usual. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Are you going to be okay? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on revenge that I hadn't really thought about what came after. What did I want my life to look like when this was all over? I don't know, I said honestly, but I'm going to try. Good, because I need you to be okay. Andrea finally came home at 9, looking surprised to see Emma's car in the driveway. What are you doing here? She asked Emma. Dad told me about the divorce. Andrea shot me a look that could have melted steel. We're not getting divorced. We're having problems, but we're working through them. Are you? Emma asked. Because Dad says you're seeing someone else. Emma, this is between your father and me. No, it's not. I'm part of this family too, and I have a right to know what's happening. Andrea looked at me helplessly. Jack, tell her we're working things out. Are we? I asked. You know we are. Do I? Because I haven't seen much evidence of that. What do you want me to do? I told you last night. Emma looked between us like she was watching a tennis match. What did you tell her last night? Nothing, Andrea said quickly. I told her that if she wanted to save our marriage, she needed to help me deal with her boyfriend. Jesus, Dad. What? You wanted honesty. Andrea's face was white. Jack, please. Not in front of Emma. Why not? She's old enough to understand that actions have consequences. This is insane, Emma said. You're both acting like children. Your mother started it. And you're going to finish it? Damn right I am. Emma stood up. I'm going to bed. When you two are ready to act like adults, let me know. After she left, Andrea and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. You're enjoying this, aren't you? What? Watching me squirm, humiliating me in front of our daughter. You humiliated yourself, Andrea. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. This isn't you, Jack. You're not cruel. You don't know what I am anymore. Hell, I don't know what I am anymore. Then let me help you remember. She moved closer to me on the couch, and for a moment I could smell her perfume, the same one she'd been wearing the night I met her. For a moment I almost remembered what it felt like to love her. Then I thought about Blake's hands on her body, and the moment passed. It's too late for that, I said. It's never too late. It is for us. The next week was quiet. Too quiet. Andrea went to work, came home at reasonable hours, and tried to pretend everything was normal. Blake stayed away from our house and, according to my sources, was keeping a low profile at work. Even Emma seemed to be adjusting to the new reality, though I could see the strain in her eyes. I should have known it was the calm before the storm. On Friday afternoon, I got a call from Tom Bradley at the Gazette. Jack, we need to talk. About what? About the story I ran last week. I just got a call from Blake Hutchinson's lawyer. They're threatening to sue for libel. On what grounds? They claim the information you gave me was false. It wasn't false. I have documentation. That's what I told them. But Jack, they're also claiming you obtained that information illegally. That's bullshit. Maybe. But they've got deep pockets and good lawyers. The Gazette can't afford a protracted legal battle. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't run any more stories about Blake or his firm. And if this goes to court, I'll have to reveal my source. Understood. After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time thinking. Blake was smarter than I'd given him credit for. He was using the system against me. Lawyers, lawsuits, the threat of financial ruin. It was elegant in a way. It was also a mistake. I called Ray. It's time, I said. You sure? I'm sure. What do you need? A place to have a private conversation. How private? Very. I'll make some calls. That evening, I sent Blake a text from a burner phone. Meet me at Kowalski's gym tomorrow at 8 p.m. Come alone or everyone in town sees the video. I didn't have a video, but Blake didn't know that. Saturday evening, I was waiting in Ray's office when Blake arrived. He looked nervous but defiant, like a man who thought his law degree would protect him from the consequences of his actions. This is harassment, he said as soon as he walked in. No, this is a conversation. Harassment would be if I posted flyers around town with pictures of you and my wife. What do you want? I want you to understand something. You think you're smart, threatening to sue the newspaper, trying to use the legal system to shut me up. But you made one mistake. What's that? You assumed I was going to play by the rules. Blake's confidence flickered. What's that supposed to mean? It means you have two choices. You can end your relationship with my wife, find a new job in a different town, and disappear from our lives forever. Or I can make your life very unpleasant. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm explaining your options. I'll call the police. Go ahead. Tell them Jack Morrison hurt your feelings. Blake looked around Ray's office, taking in the boxing posters, the worn furniture, the general air of barely controlled violence. You're crazy, he said. Maybe, but I'm also right. You fucked another man's wife, Blake. In most places, that still means something. Andrea's not your property. No, but she's still my wife. And you're still the asshole who thought he could take what wasn't his. Blake straightened up, trying to look tough. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Why? Because you used to box? Because you hang out in this shithole gym with your loser friends? No, because I have nothing left to lose, and you have everything. The truth of it hit Blake like a physical blow. I could see it in his eyes, the moment he realized that he was dealing with someone who had already lost everything that mattered. What do you want? He asked quietly. I told you. End it with Andrea. Leave town, start over somewhere else. And if I don't, then I'll destroy you. Not with lawyers or lawsuits or newspaper stories. I'll destroy your reputation, your career, your relationships. I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are. How? I smiled. I'm very good at my job, Blake. I know things about people, things they'd prefer to keep private. And I have friends who know even more. Blake was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor. When he looked up, his face was pale but determined. I won't be bullied. Then you're stupider than I thought. Andrea loves me. Andrea loves the idea of you. There's a difference. You're wrong. Am I? Then why hasn't she left me yet? Blake didn't have an answer for that. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to go home tonight and think about what I've said. Tomorrow you're going to make a choice. Choose wisely. After Blake left, Ray came into the office. Think he'll listen? He asked. No. Then what? Then we move to phase 4, which is total war.